And welcome to the Coach's Show with the head coach of the Bulldogs, Coach Brent Thompson, as we welcome you in to Big Johns Tavern at 251 East Bay Street, our new location here in 2021, where we are every Wednesday night talking Citadel football from 7 to 8 with the head coach himself, Coach Brent Thompson, who's with us, of course, tonight. Coach, good evening. How are you?
Luke, my pleasure, man. Everything's good.
Hey, good to have you, as always, here in the Coach's Show every Wednesday throughout the season. And let's dive right in, as you have an off week coming up here this weekend, off in the sense of not playing a game this weekend. Also coming off that win against North Greenville. So, of course, let's start there. How did it feel to finally get, only 3 weeks in, but to get that monkey off the back in the sense of getting that first win Saturday?
Well, as coaches, we always talk about getting that first win. And I thought it was very important for the psyche of our football team to make sure that we do get that first win. And it was a big win for us. And I know it was a Division II, but a very good. They were 2-0. It was a good Division II football team. And the one thing that you don't want to have is you don't want to have a letdown.
Have you sensed any sort of different feeling or anything with the guys coming in, coming off a win as opposed to a loss this week?
There definitely is, and especially when you have a bye week, that can be very, very challenging, right? So you've got no opponent this weekend. This is the first time our guys really get a chance to go off campus this weekend. Usually their focus would be on what they're doing this weekend instead of who do we have coming in the following weekend, which is a big game for us.
We'll get into all the specifics, but just to begin with a general question, what did you like most about your team's performance in the win Saturday?
I love the way that we came out, and there's a few things that we emphasized as a staff. Number one was running down on kickoff, and I said it last week here, is you can tell the football teams that are excited to play just by the way that they come down on the opening kickoff. And we did. We went down there. We pinned them inside the 10-yard line right there. We gave them a few first downs, but we kept it in front of them. They got the ball out a little bit. They were able to kick it. We got a punt out of it. And then we flipped the momentum right away. We got second play from scrimmage. Now, really the first down play is the one that gave us the ability to get to the second down play. We had a 2nd and 1, and that was a perfect opportunity for us to take our first shot of the day.
Yeah, that Rally Webb touchdown, you guys struck quick. So, as you said, the defense gets the stop. You get the football. Second play, you hit Rally Webb for the touchdown. Was that the idea going in, that if you had that chance, you wanted to take that type of shot?
Well, I've got about 4 or 5 shots that I'm going to take, right? And I look for my opportunities, and that was just a perfect opportunity. We know that we had a fairly good mismatch there, that Raleigh was going to be able to run by most of those guys. And it just came down to it, is we've got to put the ball in the right spot, and we've got to protect it.
And as we've discussed in the last couple of weeks, and even going back to seasons past, obviously this offense, this team, every team prefers to play with a lead than play from behind. It had been a while since you struck early like that on the first possession and took an early lead, so how crucial was it to not only get that explosive play, but to also score first and go from there?
Well, we had to prove to our guys that we can score first, number one. We can play with a lead. And the other thing is we had to say that we needed to keep and protect that lead. And it's one thing to say that you're going to go out there and create momentum, but then you got to sustain that momentum.
And it seemed like your offense did. You got in a roll there and you scored there on your first 3 possessions. You found the end zone.
Yeah, it got disappointing when we didn't score, and that's where I started to get a little bit frustrated. We did score on our first 3 possessions there, and we scored right before the half, which is what we always try to do. Even though we were pinned somewhere around the 10 or 15-yard line right there, I thought it was important for us to go into halftime not only with a lead, but also with the sense that hey, we're still playing as hard as we possibly can. We're still trying to score every single time we get the ball.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about that 2-minute drill because, as you said, you went 93 yards in 32 seconds. I think it was 4 plays. Must have been nice to not only get more points, but when people think of an option offense, it's this slowly move down the field. To be explosive and go right down the field in 32 seconds, the full length, obviously that must have sent a nice message to the team to be able to score like that.
Well, it's been one of the benefits of us trying to create a little bit of up-tempo for our defenses. We've had to do it on offense, too, in order to give them a good, proper look. We have it built into our package. We're doing a little bit more in the 2-minute mode than we would normally do throughout a normal week of practice. We did that. And we had a sense of urgency. And really, once again, the first down play was a run play. I wanted to see what we could get on second down there and where we would want to be. The second play was just a switch concept off the front side toss. Jalen probably throws one of the best balls I've seen him throw in particularly that route. Is he's got to put that route really, really close to on the money. Otherwise, it's incomplete or even an interception. And then once he did that, Ryan makes a play down there. Raleigh makes a play, and the next thing you know, we're in the end zone.
Yeah, and it's only been 3 games, so small sample size, but right now this Citadel offense is averaging more passing yards than any previous team going back to 2009 when it was a different type of offense. We saw the passing game come into play on that drive with those 2 completions. How important is it to have that element to be able to be productive through the air as well?
Well, number one, I'm just happy not to be last in the country, right? I mean, I've been last so many times in that category. We're usually number one in like efficiency or number one in yards per catch right there, but we're always somewhere around last in total yards. So, yeah, it is. It's a added dimension to our offense. It's something that we've worked really, really hard on over camp and over summer and really since the season started. But you also have 2 really quality wide receivers, and there's a third one coming too. I think I've really seen a lot out of Tyler Cherry and then Cole Owens. We've got really 4 solid wide receivers here that are up and coming. Eventually Raleigh will graduate, eventually. But, Ryan's got another year left. Ryan's a solid wide receiver out there, makes some tremendous catches, and then Raleigh can stretch you deep. So we've got to use those guys too. Obviously,
you go as the game goes, but this offseason or maybe during the week, do you have like a number in your head like, man, I hope or I would like if we had this number of passing yards or this number of pass attempts, or it's just whatever happens, happens?
Usually whatever happens, happens. I try not to manipulate it too much there. But, in this offense, if you're going 300 on the ground and another 100 in the air, you're pretty solid right there. And we've been able to do that on a couple of occasions this year. The Coastal Carolina game, we didn't take as many chances with it. But really the last couple of games and playing from behind probably didn't help us out either.
Let me ask you about the B-back position. And Wanze got the start, and then it was Storch for most of the rest of the game. And Wanze, was he okay moving forward? You just wanted to get Storch in there from that point?
No, Amike took a little bit of an injury. He's going to be fine. The bye week's going to help him out. He was back practicing a little bit today out there, so I think he's going to be fine. We'll be back to most of our B-backs being back and healthy. But, yeah, Storch was solid in there again, coming in relief, did a solid job, and happy for him. He got another 1 or 2 touchdowns, I believe.
Yeah, I know I asked you about him last week, but then he goes out and scores the 2 touchdowns on Saturday. Last year in particular, and I'd have to check the numbers this year, but I know last year he had only 1 carry of negative yards. And we've talked about what a great story he is. He comes to you this walk-on, you make him, into a B-back, and he's been successful. But for him to find the end zone twice on Saturday, I'm sure that looked good as well, coming in, especially to relieve, an injured Wanze. You get this other guy comes in, he scores twice.
Well, you know what it does? It takes a little bit of pressure off of Jalen. He's got to make a decision on every single play just about. If you could take a little bit of that pressure off him and then take the pressure off of him inside of the 1 or 2 yard line. The quarterback sneaks are nice and everything, but a man is, he's 170 pounds in there. So it's nice to give him a little bit of a change up with a 220, 30-pound Storch in there.
Talking about that win against North Greenville from this past Saturday, the largest margin of victory for the Citadel in over 4 years as they beat North Greenville this past Saturday at home. On third down, both sides of the football, statistically the team performed a lot better on third down than the first couple of games. Offensively on third down, you guys were 8 for 12. You never even had to go for it on a fourth down. You didn't face many fourth downs. Was that just a product of staying ahead of the chains? What led to the success on third down?
Yeah, first and second down really was good for us. First down in particular was really good for us. And it was also a matter of, when were we going to take our chances? We didn't have to take too many chances in there. We got behind the sticks a couple times. But if you can, stay on the positive side of first down, I think we're going to be okay. And it's the same thing going forward this week. Is we've got to stress is just we can't miss a beat.
You had, I believe, as many explosive plays Saturday as the first 2 games. 4 runs alone. In fact, more explosive plays, I believe. 4 runs alone of over 20 yards. What led to some of that explosiveness on the ground Saturday?
Well, a couple things. Our offensive line, number one, and we were able to complement a few things. We also wore them out in the second half. Braden Walker, I truly didn't think he was going to score on that particular play. It was just a regular old dive play. He sits in there nicely, finds a nice crease in there. And the one thing that we've always been hoping for Braden, and I said this about a few weeks ago when he was in the second scrimmage of our camp, he rips off a 70-yard run. He's got one of the top speeds for the B-back position. Finds a little bit of a crease in there and goes, and that's what I've been waiting to see all year long with him. But I think he's getting over the hump right now.
And Jalen Adams had a nice run, I think a 33-yarder at one point. Now that he's played 3 games here this fall, obviously he was the starter in the spring. What have you seen from Jalen just running that option offense and, the decisions he has to make play to play?
He's got a better command of it, and I've got to probably take a little bit of the leash off of him a little reins off of him a little bit, because I think he can go with it. He's making some really good checks. I called a timeout. I didn't know if he was going to get a particular check there against CSU. He was on top of it. He was ready to go. So So it's good. It's nice. It's getting to the point where Brandon was. It's getting to the point where Dominique was, where we can call it and he can make the proper adjustment to it.
And speaking of explosive plays, we already touched on the touchdown pass to Riley Webb, but then as we were discussing that 2-minute drill earlier, you get Webb with the rushing touchdown and another one of those end arounds. A guy that whenever we talk Riley Webb, we always bring up he's the type of player you just want the ball in his hands, and he was able to make plays a couple of different ways Saturday.
Yeah, we gave him the reverse, and it was kind of one of those where we had 40-something seconds left. We're going to be okay if this thing was tackled inbounds. I said, look, we've probably got to pop a timeout here. We had two more left. I'd called one right there. Gave myself a chance to think about it. But it was one of those like, hey, let's just wait and see what we can get here. And, for all I can get into the end zone, great. If not, we'll get a little bit closer here, and we'll take a couple shots at the end zone. All I was looking to do was get into, the 5 or 10 yard range where we could take 2 or 3 shots at the end zone within the 30 seconds that would have been left.
Well, the Bulldogs coming off that big win against North Greenville Saturday night at Johnson Haygood. Have an off week this weekend, and then, of course, VMI coming to town next Saturday. We'll continue to talk about the Bulldogs' win Saturday, break down the defensive side of that victory, and also get ready for eventually the VMI game coming up next week and what's ahead for these Bulldogs here in this off week. We're at Big Johns Tavern at 251 East Bay Street with the Coaches Show here to the top of the hour. Come back with more next on the Coaches Show here all across the Citadel Sports Network. Coach of the Citadel Bulldogs, Coach Brent Thompson, here at Big Johns Tavern, located at 251 East Bay Street in downtown Charleston. Our new location for 2021. This is one of the oldest bars in downtown Charleston, opening back in 1955, now currently owned by 3 Citadel graduates in a nice spot. So come out and check us out here at Big Johns Tavern at 251 East Bay Street. And the Coaches Show brought to you each and every week by Cutwater Spirits, as well as we talk Citadel football here every Wednesday night at Big Johns Tavern. Have you put the food order in yet, Coach, for tonight?
I did. I went with the wings. I tell you what, I had the steak sandwich last week. Phenomenal. It was great. Smash burger the week before. Really, really good. So looking forward to it. I may just try the whole menu and then go back to what I like.
The wings are the old reliable, so
no
we have
question.
to see how they do here.
I figured bye-week wings. We'll take a shot on these.
Yeah, why not? Let's go back to that past win, though, this past Saturday. Before we look ahead, keep talking about the win against North Greenville. Colby Kintner, we got our first look at him kicking a field goal this time, 3 games in, and was able to put it through. I know we highlighted him last week. They say the best part about freshmen is, they become sophomores, and you mentioned that stronger leg so far here his sophomore year.
He's had a really nice camp, and it was a little bit of a concern in the opening of camp, but he really, really improved by the time that we finished camp. Tremendous confidence in him. In the first 2 games, it wasn't a matter of not having any confidence in him. It was more of we just needed points in those 2 games. But we had an opportunity to go ahead and, take a shot out there, and he did. He knocked it down, which was great. It's good to see for his own confidence.
Defensively, bending but not breaking. I mean, he gave up very few points. The defense didn't even give up a touchdown. Had a couple of forced turnovers. Overall, what'd you think of the defensive performance Saturday?
That, as I told the guys when we were done, that is the formula to success for us, right? Is keep it in front of you, make them play every single down. Is if we give up too many big plays, we're not going to match big plays with every single team that we face out there. So make them earn it, keep the ball in front of you, and then when we have the opportunity to pick one like Destin did, let's take that shot.
Yeah, how crucial is that? I mean, I'm stating the obvious, but from one goal line, he returns it down to the other side. It seemed like North Greenville in that possession, they had a chance to potentially get back in the game, and then here came Destin and, removed kind of all hope.
Yeah, it was nice, and when he came off the field, I said, man, you got to score next time. Is it you're going to go all that way out there, and we get it inside the 5-yard line on offense? That's cheating. So take that thing all the way in. But I was happy to see. For our defense. Number 1 is we got a turnover there. Number 2 is it set us up to score. And number 3 was Destin. He's a senior. He's been with us for a long time. He's one of our captains. He's a great kid. Certainly deserved it, and I was glad he was in the right position at the right time.
Yeah, he had the interception. Then Parrish Gordon had one as well. Not to just highlight certain people and forget about all the other guys, but I do want to ask you about a couple of players that at least stood out to me up in the broadcast booth Saturday, and one of them is Carson Hatchett, who's now a couple of weeks here in a row has made some plays in the backfield. What have you seen from Carson in particular?
Carson had a really, really good spring. And the one thing about Carson is, number 1, if you know him, he's a character. He's a funny kid. He's a great kid. But number 2 is when you get him on the football field, loves to play football. The thing that sticks out the most about him, he just loves to play football. You can see it out there, and he's always in the mix out there. He's a lean, athletic-bodied kid, which we use in a lot of different positions. We move him around quite a bit, but he's always around the ball. He's always hustling in the ball, and he's just a sophomore. We were really pleasantly surprised as a freshman with him, and he played a lot for us in the spring, as I said. Well, I'm excited for him. We're trying to get a little bit more weight on him, but he certainly plays well at where he is, about 240 right now, I think.
And the other player I did want to ask about, Dominic Poole led the team in tackles on Saturday. What did you see from him?
Well, Dom was a guy that we had kind of moved around. It was a guy that didn't start the season off and came in relief. I liked what he did. The thing about Dom in that particular position is, number 1 is he's got confidence. And when you're a defensive back and you lack confidence, you're going to be in trouble. But number 2 is he competes. He's a competitor out there, and he's really matured going into – he missed all of the spring. So going into his fall year, he had a great summer, worked his rear end off, got into great shape, and he's playing, and it's paying off for him, and I'm happy for him.
I know coaches are never completely satisfied. Swallow was a good win, and you played well in all 3 phases. What did you come away from that game thinking? We still need to work on this. I still want to clean this up.
Well, we lulled at times, and I was very, very upset with the offense at times. We had 3 punts on the day, and really it was our own fault. We got behind on a couple of downs there. We need to make that up. I felt like we let our foot off the gas. The one thing that I will say about that, and I said it to the team on Sunday after I watched the film, and that was at least we played team football, meaning that the defense picked us up. You know, when we weren't playing well on offense, the defense played us. They picked us up. When we weren't playing well on defense, the offense picked it up. It was one of those things where it went back and forth well enough. So I thought we did that really, really well. But we need to keep our foot on the accelerator all day.
We talked last week about the head coach of North Greenville, Jeffrington, a graduate of the Citadel, somebody that you've gotten to know here in the state. And it was nice that his team came out and, you know, they were carrying the American flag. They had the different flags for the different services in this country and everything. When it came to Jeff Saturday, obviously you competed throughout the game. Did you have any conversations with him afterwards, after that game?
No, it was very brief. But before the game, we had a great conversation. He's a great guy. He's got a very, very difficult schedule up there. But I think he's got a very good team. I think he's got a chance to compete with that schedule, even though he's got to play teams like West Florida and Valdosta, a couple of defending national champions there. But he is a terrific guy, runs a first-class program. Love playing those guys and love going up to visit them, just hopefully not on a hurricane.
Yeah, certainly. We talked last week about the hurricanes and the quirky things that you've had to go through as a head coach. You know, before we came on the air, we were hearing about Clemson's game against Georgia Tech. They had a 2-hour delay because of weather. I can think back to when I was working with a football team in Florida. Final game of the season, we had a 6-hour delay because of lightning at halftime. We were all just sitting around waiting. When are we going to play the second half? So I was thinking about that. I was going to ask you, in your coaching career, have you ever had some sort of in-game delay that goes on for hours and you're just waiting around, waiting, like when are we going to be able to start this game? You ever go through something like that?
Yeah, we did. And when I was at Bucknell, and it was a pretty hot day for Hamilton, New York, which doesn't get very hot up there in the western part of New York. And we had gotten a thunderstorm up there, and we had gone probably about an hour, maybe 2 hours, where we had to clear the field. And we were playing really well. I thought, you know, it was a lesson learned. We were playing really well going into it. I thought that Hamilton or Colgate being the home team, I thought that they went back in and made the adjustments. I heard Phil was talking about it before, making all the adjustments. And
right.
You have the time to make the adjustments. I don't think we made many adjustments on that because we were doing fairly well. We kind of knew what was going on. So the team that has kind of lost the momentum really has the advantage in that situation. You know, if you're going out there and you're playing fairly well and you know what you're getting, kind of you feel comfortable in your spot, maybe a little too comfortable.
That piques my interest just in terms of a regular game. That's a different situation. In this case in particular, Clemson, they had a 2-hour halftime. You could do some things. But for a normal game, say this past Saturday for your game against North Greenville, how much is getting done at halftime in terms of adjustments or making some changes for the second half when you have only about, whatever it is, 15 minutes between halves?
Yeah, you get about 15 minutes in there, and it's down to 10 minutes maybe. We didn't make a whole lot of adjustments in there. What we really just kind of said was, okay, these are the set of plays that we just need to focus on. We need to focus on just getting first downs on these plays right here. We've kind of got them where we want them at this point. Now, unfortunately, like I said, we kind of sputtered around a little bit. When we try to test too many things out, it doesn't work out well for us. We just need to stick with what was working well for us. And really, I thought our offensive line play was just really winning us the game, and that's what we needed to do, was just put it in their hands.
Just to spend another moment on that offensive line, I know you spoke about some of the depth with that offensive line coming into the season. You said they played well on Saturday, so have you liked what you've gotten from them so far this year?
I think it's one of our better offensive lines here now, going all the way back to 15 and 16. Those guys were about consistent. Those guys were really, that was the best. I mean, that's the kind of the gold standard for us of offensive linemen. But these guys right here, they're very, very similar. They play together extremely well. They've been playing together for some time now. We've mixed and matched parts. For the first time, I feel like we've got 3 guards. We've got 3 tackles. We've got a tight end that we can use. We've got a center that's played 4 years for us. We're not really missing any of those missing links that we were like, we got to cover up this guy. He hasn't really been around. When we were in 17, we were starting 2 new guards, and one of those was J.B. Lewis. So JB's been, for the most part, around since 2017, and it shows. He's playing extremely well right now. And you got Terrius that we went from guard to tackle. We moved him out there, and I think that's a great fit for him. He's a very, very athletic. He's a strong, powerful guy. Benny Brockington plays on the other side, and Cam Maui plays with him on the other side. Cam's a lot athletic, kind of longer, leaner, kind of like a Nick Jeffries who was here in 16. Benny's a bigger, stronger fellow and very athletic in his own right. And then John Toole, who's been starting here for 2 or 3 years, and he can get Zach Blanchard started the first game. So we've got guys that can mix and match in all those positions for the first time.
Yeah, and they helped clear the way for the win Saturday against North Greenville. The Bulldogs 1-2 do not play this weekend. It's the off weekend, and then they get VMI coming into town next Saturday. When we come back, we'll talk about what it's like now this week when you don't necessarily have a game to get ready for this weekend. We'll start to talk about that with the head coach of the Bulldogs, Coach Brent Thompson. When we come back here on the Coaches Show from our new location this year, we're at Big Johns Tavern, located at 251 East Bay Street in downtown Charleston. They just reopened at the start of the football season. Come check them out. Come say hello on a Wednesday night. We're here throughout the football season. The Coaches Show brought to you by Cutwater Spirits. More with the head coach of the Bulldogs, Coach Brent Thompson, next after this, right here on the Citadel Sports Network. Coach's Show with the head coach of the Bulldogs, Coach Brent Thompson, here from our new location, Big Johns Tavern at 251 East Bay Street. Coach's Show brought to you by Cutwater Spirits all year long as we talk Citadel football every Wednesday night from 7 to 8 here at Big Johns Tavern. The Bulldogs coming off a nice win against North Greenville here this past Saturday. Do not play a game this Saturday, and VMI will come to town next Saturday at Johnson Haygood for that big rivalry matchup here coming up in just about a week and a half. And, Coach, let's talk about this week. Obviously, no game to get prepared for this Saturday. So what is this week like where you have a little extra time to get ready for the next one?
Yeah, we've been usually we will start our preparation at the end of this week for the next upcoming opponent. Not this year, though. You know, I changed my approach this year. We've got a big game coming up. I want to make sure that we're on point. So we started on we started on Sunday, but we got into it heavy on Tuesday. So today and yesterday we were working on all of our VMI stuff as much as we possibly can, and try to get out in front of that one. And then we're also trying to fix a few things that we thought that we needed to work on as well, both offensively and defensively.
I remember in the Super Bowl a couple years ago, Sean McVay said afterwards, maybe I overanalyze when you have that extra week to get ready for the Super Bowl. So is there kind of like a fine line you want to make sure you walk where you take advantage of that extra time, but you don't want to spend too much time maybe overthinking things because you have extra time?
You do. You have to talk yourself out of a lot of things. Is really, we can do this. We've got so much more time. We can do this. And you watch way too much video, and you're sitting there, scheming it up, down to it. You've got to execute. Mm-hmm. And if you can't execute what you've got, or you can't convey that to your players, you're not going to be very good, and especially our players. We do what we do for a reason. We're an execution team. We always need to be an execution team. Both sides of the football, we just need to play fundamentals and execution, and we'll be fine.
Is it like a normal week of practice, or how much rest is built into this little extra time?
We go pretty good Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I give them Friday, Saturday off, and then we'll start again on Sunday, and we'll go pretty good on Sunday again. But Tuesday, Wednesday, like yesterday, was a full solid 21 periods. Today was 20 periods. We'll break it down a little bit. Typically, we go 16 on a Thursday. We may go between 16 and 18 tomorrow. You
mentioned in Wanze earlier getting a little banged up on Saturday. Just overall, 3 games in this off week, how's the health of the team right now?
We've got quite a few yellow and red jerseys out there. If you know how a football program works, is those guys in yellow and red, they're at different various stages of injury, but they're still out there practicing. We need to move forward. We need to work forward. You can't worry about those injuries. They're going to happen. We're going to get better. We're going to feel better here in a couple days. So hopefully starting after tomorrow, giving them 2 days off, because you go Friday, Saturday off, you come back, you go Sunday, and then you're off again Monday. So in a matter of 4 days, you got 3 days off. I think it's a good solid time to get back ready to go.
Looking at a couple of questions that were sent in from some fans, because one was along those same lines. How has Clay Harris been progressing in his return from injury?
It's been solid but slow. He's gradually made it into where he can wear cleats now. And he's running around out there. He's cutting on it, and he's kind of getting used to that. So he's progressing nicely. I think it's hopefully here in the near future he'll be back practicing with us soon.
Has he still been, around the team each day, being able to be that leader?
Yeah, but he's been there. He's lifting. He's gotten himself really, really strong. I mean, with all of the time off of his foot, he's gotten his upper body in great shape. He's bench pressing about as much as he can. He's weighing in about as much as he has weighed before. And he's in really good shape. We just got to get him in a football shape eventually.
Another question was about Braden Walker. You touched on him earlier with that big touchdown run he had and the speed that he does have, and that was a little bit of a jailbreak. But I know somebody asked, a Citadel fan asked about, if he has that ability to kind of break loose, like some B-backs in the past. What do you see from Braden moving forward that he could bring to this offense?
The one thing that it has never been about the talent with Braden. It's always been about where is he? Is he going to go in the right spot all the time? Is he getting a good feel for the offense? He just needs to be more consistent as a practice player before you'll trust him and you'll go out there and put him into the game situation, which, coming off the field on Saturday, he said to me, he said, Coach, I got to get in way better shape. He took about 4 or 5 reps. He got about 3 or 4 carries in there, and he had to come out. So the first thing that he had to realize was he had to get in better shape. But second of all, he's got to make sure that he can execute what we ask him to execute out there and do it on a consistent basis. By far, he is way more talented than a lot of those other B-backs, and he can definitely do it. We just got to get him over a few humps and hurdles here.
And the last question that we got from a fan that we haven't talked about him yet, and so therefore I don't want to get his name wrong because I know people pronounce it differently. Elijah, is it Bass or Bass? How does he say it?
Bass.
Bass.
Yeah.
How is he coming along?
You know, Elijah was on our scout team for a while, and it was just because football was completely foreign to him. We were trying to just get him to figure out football. And I mean, football from, watching it and understanding it's one thing, but playing it is a completely other. And hadn't played it in so many years, going all the way back to his younger years in high school. And he's a 24, 25-year-old man now. So he was on our scout team for a long time. And finally one of the defensive guys said, look, we need to do something here. He either needs to come over and play defense and learn that position, or we can't really tackle him. It's on the scout team we just got to hand him the ball there. No, there's not a whole lot. There's a card drawn and everything, so guys know exactly where to go. So after that, I went down there and I watched him. I took some time and I looked over and I said, you know what? They're right. This guy's just one of those guys. So I grabbed him about 2.5, 3 weeks ago and I said, look, take all of our indie, come all the way down with us, get all of the extra reps that you can get with us, and see maybe 4 or 5 weeks we can get you ready to play. And sure enough, I think he's gotten better. He's gotten our half line reps in there anytime that we've needed a blow or a break. And Mike gets banged up a little bit, he can take some of the practice reps off. And Braden gets winded a little bit, he can take some of those reps. And he's really starting to figure out and learn it. And it was interesting, about a week ago I ran into him and his wife outside of Cygnus Hall right there, and I said, is this your wife? I said, yeah. And I said, well, good, pleasure to meet you. Elijah's a great young man. I said, and I'm going to make him a football player before he gets out of here. And she said, yes, sir, which was nice because I would really love to see him do well. He's a great kid.
We haven't talked about that story, not even here on the show or in any of our interviews for the broadcast themselves. So for those unfamiliar, I mean, how did he come to you, become part of this program?
So it was brought up to me by Coach D, Donnell Boucher, our strength guy, and he said, look, I've got this MESEP, which is one of our Marines that are on campus there, and he said, look, I've got this guy, and usually I don't pay too much attention to him, but this guy in particular, he's come to me a couple of times, so he's asked about possibly coming out and playing football, and I was like, whatever, if he comes to me, whatever. And that was during the spring season. I was jammed up in the spring anyway. So we get to about somewhere around mid-June, and we're about to start to work out, and his name gets brought up to me again. One of my assistants said, so yeah, whatever happened to that guy? He said, well, I just ran into him, and he said he would like to come out. I said, well, have him come meet with me. So mid-June, he comes over and meets with me, and I said, look, this is what you're getting into. Here's what the camp schedule looks like. Here's what our in-season schedule looks like. I don't even know if you're the guy in charge over there is going to let you handle this. Are they going to let you do this? I mean, here you are. You're here with the Marines, and you can go out there and play football. And he said, no. He said, I'll get it all figured out, and I'll come back to you. And I said, perfectly fine. 2 weeks later, he shows up. He says, I think I can do it. I got it all figured out. I said, well, here we go. I don't have a roster spot for you right now, but do this. Come and train with our guys starting here next week in June. Train with us in June, train with us in July, and then I'll see if I've got a spot. And I was really just buying time to see what he can do. Mm-hmm. Well, sure enough, he goes out there. He's one of the faster guys. He's one of the most explosive guys out there. So I said, we got to find a spot for him. Sure enough, found a spot for him. And then we kind of realized that we got to start a little bit at ground zero with him. But if we can do that, that's a bonus for us. I mean, he's a terrific guy, and he's going to learn it. And we don't have a lot of guys that run and are his size. So B-back, I think, is a natural fit for him here. And maybe in a few weeks we can get him ready to play.
A lot of guys come in, the freshmen could be 18-year-olds right out of high school. Is it any different coaching like a 25-year-old who does have a wife, and is going through this?
The interesting thing about it is it's kind of a relief, a little bit of pleasure, right? He's on top of every single part of his game, right? I never really worry about it. He met with his colonel over there. He met with his commanding officer, said, this is what I got to get done. Here's what my calendar looks like. I ask him to do something, it gets them on, bam, 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 bam. So he's got real-world experience, right? He understands what it's like to report to a job or and achieve a goal, where you kind of got to work through that with some 18-year-olds. Even though by the time they graduate, they start to get it.
Right.
But it's like it's like getting a graduate student. It's like getting a fifth year. You take those things for granted, where they know it. They understand what it's like to be a part of a program, or what it's like to go to a job every single day.
with this off week and then VMI coming up next week, if you had to pick an opponent to follow the off week, if you had to pick a team to get an extra week to get ready for, how high up is VMI in that list? Do you like this, how this works out?
I do. It's probably the top of my list. I mean, obviously you got, Furman and Wofford and those other teams because I know this. I know it's important to our guys, right? I know it's extremely important. So it's going to hold our focus for 2 weeks. And I said to the guys today's Wednesday. We're going into Thursday. We're just figuring this thing out, right? We're going to end this thing, and then we're going to restart on Sunday. I know what happens around here, right, is you get locked up for so long here, right? These guys have been here since early August. Here it is late September. They've been here for 2 straight months. Now, they've gotten off campus a little bit more than they did last year, but still it wears on them a little bit, and they start looking forward to Friday and Saturday, right? I said, just give me one more day. Just give me one more day of focus. We've had really 2 solid days. Tuesday I thought was phenomenal. Wednesday, today was just, it was tough out there today. We had a rough one today. They did everything that they possibly could. They practiced hard. It's just we had to throw a lot of things at them on a Wednesday. Tomorrow I need their focus. I need one more day of focus out of them. I think VMI will keep their focus for another day, get the off day, and then we'll roll into Sunday.
I like how it works out, too, selfishly, because I have a wedding to go to this weekend. If it was any other weekend, I don't know if I could be there, but this works out well. And I always tell anybody in my life that knows me, if you want to make plans, we have to make them in the spring or the summer because fall weekends, we got football all the time. I can only imagine what it'd be like as a football coach. I'm just a fan and, sometimes a broadcaster. For you, what's it like in your life where I imagine your schedule, right, from, August, July till December, you got nothing else going on other than football, right?
It's amazing to me, the people that schedule in the fall.
Unbelievable.
Completely blows my mind, right? Is nothing can really go on in the fall. I always ask, are we not football fans here? Do we not understand that this is a football family, especially if it's a family member, right? If it's a direct family member of one of your players, one of your coaches, even myself, I always question this is football season. You don't schedule weddings in a football season.
No awareness. When you talk about players, quarterbacks, their pocket awareness. This buddy of mine has no wedding awareness whatsoever getting married this weekend in the fall. Fortunately, no Citadel game this weekend, so I can make it all work.
You got to pick your friends better, by the way. Let's face it.
I know.
Right?
It is true. After this, they won't hear from me anymore. Along those same lines, and without getting, personal or anything, a friend of mine is married, and his wife likes to joke that she is a NFL weekend widow, that she's married during the week. On the weekend, hey, he's on his own watching football. You go do your own thing. It's like you're not married. For a football coach, I imagine, you're a family guy, you're married with kids. You got to have a family that's, I'm sure, supportive and understanding with what you have going on for at least half the year.
Well, she's got it good. She just has the weekend, right? Just Sunday, really. My poor wife. But I always say this is my wife only knew me as a football coach, right? She understood it from the start. The best thing about my wife was she was part of a football family. Her grandfather played for the Pottsville Maroons which was one of the first professional teams.
Wow.
Her grandfather was a punter and I believe a wide receiver or a split end, as they used to call him. Her dad played at Bucknell actually before he injured his back. Great football guy. Gets it, understands it, calls me every week after wins or losses, gives me the breakdown. Awesome dude. So my wife gets it, and there's a reason why I'm married. She understands that, hey, I'm just not going to be around a whole lot. And she's given that to the girls a little bit. She never, ever blames me for anything during the football season. She's absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, which is great, of course. Makes it a little bit easier during these football seasons. The Bulldogs do not have a game this weekend. VMI comes to town next Saturday. We'll continue to talk all things Citadel football coming up here in our final segment of the Coaches Show tonight as we're out at Big Johns Tavern, our location for 2021. Come see us at 251 East Bay Street. 251 East Bay Street. Big John Tavern is back, up and running, and operated by 3 Citadel graduates. Come say hello. The Coaches Show brought to you by Cutwater Spirits. One final segment. We'll wrap things up for this week with the head coach of the Bulldogs, Coach Brent Thompson, coming up next right here on the Citadel Sports Network. Tavern, final segment as we wrap things up here on this Wednesday night with the head coach of the Bulldogs. We're here every Wednesday during the football season at 251 East Bay Street, Big Johns Tavern, new spot for 2021 and a bar that just reopened here this football season, so stop by and say hello. The Coach's Show brought to you by Cutwater Spirits here each and every week as we talk Citadel football every Wednesday night with the head coach of the Bulldogs, Coach Brent Thompson. And, Coach, it is an off week, so we'll wait to really dive into VMI next week. So I figured we'd ask some of the most important questions for the head coach of the Bulldogs, starting with number one. When you eat pizza, do you fold the pizza? Do you eat it from the crust to the front? Do you cut it with a fork and knife? How do you eat your pizza?
Well, fold it and eat it as fast as I possibly can, and I do eat the crust, and sometimes I put butter on the crust.
Ooh, that's pretty good. What's the go-to toppings on the pizza?
It's always one. It's sausage and onions.
That's pretty good. What about, as we talk food, we are here at Big Johns Tavern, Joe Judge, head coach of the Giants, was asked the most important question about his last meal. If he was, say, God forbid, death row, you got to order a last meal, he had to answer that question at a press conference during football season. So let me ask you the same question. If you were having your last meal, what's on the menu? What are you eating one final time?
Tomahawk steak, bone-in, right? Garlic mashed potatoes.
Ooh.
Green beans, a little bit of butter, salt, pepper on them.
Pretty good. That sounds like a good last meal. Talking food with the head coach of the Bulldogs, Coach Brent Thompson. When it comes to candy, I don't know if you have a sweet tooth. Halloween's around the corner. Is there a go-to candy bar that either growing up or now you're number one?
Snickers, no doubt.
Snickers. Interesting. All right, flip side, what candy bar do you think is overrated, you can't stand?
Geez, that's a great question. I mean, which one would I really, really turn down? Not a big Butterfinger fan. It sticks into my teeth too much.
That's true. It's a little too...
no Bart Simpson for me.
That's right. Those classic commercials back in the day. I do like this one. I'm going through a random list here of questions. What fictional family, as a kid or now, would you like to, if you had to choose? I'm not saying give up your family, but if you had to choose, what fictional family would you choose to be part of?
The Drummonds on Different Strokes. Love Different Strokes. Man, the guy had like a penthouse apartment in New York. Had some really cool kids in there, man. I'm all about it.
Was that the show growing up for you, Different Strokes?
Oh, yeah. Solid.
That is a great show. Talking just random icebreakers with Coach Thompson as we have an off week here to get ready for. I don't know if you're much of a singer. If you had to sing karaoke, do you have a go-to song in the back of your head that if you were forced to sing, you know what you're going with?
My go-to is always Friends in Low Places, man.
That's a classic.
Yeah, I mean, just solid.
Would that
in fact, I think the last time I did it was at Wet Willie's down here, like maybe back in the 90s. I think it was my brother and I.
Really?
Yeah,
in the 90s?
Yeah, Wet Willie's down in King Street. It's not there anymore, but it used to be.
You were here, what, just on a trip?
Vacation. Yeah, we used to vacation down here quite a bit.
Oh, how about that? That's interesting. Is that the genre? Are you a country music guy?
No, not at all.
No, just that's the one.
Just the one. That's right.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that's.
I like country music, but no, not necessarily into it.
I think that would be a popular choice. Favorite decade? If you could only live in one decade, I'm a kid of the 90s. I'm partial to the 90s. What decade would you choose?
90s good, solid, but 80s is where it's at for me, man. I mean, just 80s bands, 80s groups. Even when I get a chance to listen to 80s music, solid. Miami Vice. I mean, all that. I mean, I'm into it.
I am envious of missing out on the 80s. I do love anything set in the 80s. Along similar lines, since you mentioned music, do you remember your first either record or CD or tape cassette, the first album that you bought?
Yeah, it was actually a record. It was a 45, and I don't know that I bought it, but it was the first one I remember really having as my own.
Yeah.
Eye of the Tiger, Survivor. I mean, it was me, man. Yeah. And it was a 45, so you had to place like this yellow disc in the middle of it to make the thing play. I mean,
was that the only song? Was it like a single? That was the only song on there?
I think Survivor, Eye of the Tiger, and there may have been something on the flip side. I forget what it was.
B-side you never paid any attention to. Probably wore that thing out. Embarrassingly, and I always share it, the first CD I bought as a kid was Cisco because of the thong song back in the day. That was my first. So, and I was a young kid at the time, and I didn't know any better. I thought that was good music back then. I think I've asked you about this in years past, but if not a football coach, what career would you have chose if it wasn't football?
Something in the government. I love the government. Yeah. I went to school for peace, war, and diplomacy. Got a degree in history and peace, war, and diplomacy. I was decidedly coming out of high school. I was ready to go into CIA, FBI, something like that. I was working actually, and until the subject became really hard, I was working on my double major in French.
Wow.
I got through about 15 credits of it and bowed out of that one.
Can you speak French or any other language?
I can understand parts of it. I can go to Montreal and kind of get around a little bit. Don't know that I can speak a whole lot anymore, even though my mother probably was a little disappointed in me that she paid for all those credits.
Yeah. You mentioned Montreal. You used to visit here. Of course, Charleston, this is the number one spot. But outside of Charleston, what will be a number one place here in this country that you do like to visit or that you've enjoyed visiting the most?
Well, that's a great question. It's interesting. Was when I lived up north, I enjoyed really coming down here. But I will tell you what is a beautiful part of the country, and it's New England. I love living in Boston. Living in Boston in these upcoming months, September, October, November, kind of gets a little bit dicey, but it's a wonderful place to be, and it's very similar to Charleston in the way that the town is set up and everything. So a lot of places in New England, I miss a lot of the small town New England fall, where kind of a sweater, leaf kind of a deal, changing of the seasons.
Absolutely.
If I was to say I miss anything about living up there, it's probably a few weeks here and there.
I'm with you. Same exact thing. Don't miss the winters. I do miss the fall. So with that said, you're a New York guy originally. You did live in Boston. If you had to choose a city, New York City or Boston, which one do you prefer?
I'd live in Boston. I'm not a huge New York City fan. It's a small town city kind of a place. But the history that you have in Boston is phenomenal. When I lived there, you took a lot of that for granted, but you could go around and see a lot of spectacular places in history.
Lastly, on the list of just random questions with the head coach of the Bulldogs, if you could have a superpower, what superpower do you wish you could have?
Well, that's a great question. Most of the time, I wish I could probably go back in time. If I could travel back in time, I would take a lot more things more serious than I did.
We have only about 90 seconds, so let's end on a football question because that's why we're here. Last thing I'll ask you on football tonight, as you get ready for VMI next week, and we'll get more into that team next week, but is this a pretty similar VMI team that just won in the spring? How different is this VMI team right now?
I've watched them a bit, and I've watched them against Cornell, and I do think that they are a very, very good football team. They are a little bit different up front on defense as far as their personnel. A lot of the same guys are back, but offensively they're very similar to what they do. They still got Karras back, they still got the quarterback back. I mean, they got a lot of players. I mean, I only think they graduated a handful of guys from there. So I do think that they are a solid, good football team. It'll be interesting this week to see them against Wofford. I mean, at this point, I heard it maybe the other day. I heard it a couple weeks ago maybe. It was actually up there. I was speaking at the Touchdown Club in Orangeburg. And Coach Pugh said, we're 2 games in at this point. Nobody knows what they are at this point. Nobody knows how good you really can be at this point. So I think that's where we're at, is once we get into week 4, 5, and 6, you'll have a better idea.
Well, we'll talk certainly a lot more about that game next Wednesday when we're here at Big Johns Tavern. No game this week for the Citadel. We'll be back next Wednesday for the Coaches Show here at 251 East Bay Street, Big Johns Tavern. The Coaches Show brought to you by Cutwater Spirits. Coach, appreciate it as always. We'll talk to you next Wednesday.
Look forward to it, man. Thank you.
Hey, us as well. The Coaches Show next Wednesday at 7 o'clock coming up as we get ready for the game against VMI here on the Citadel Sports Network.